One important aspect of how mind maps work is that they reflect our understanding of the brain, and they become an external manifestation of what is going on inside our brains. I therefore want to run through a few explanations and exercises with you to accentuate some of the key points about how our brains work and how this relates to how mind maps work and why they're so effective. Many of you will be familiar with the distinction between the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And while all models of the brain are somewhat simplistic, this is a very useful one to help us understand the range of different things that go on inside the brain. And it's often mistakenly believed that mind mapping is primarily a right brain process, whereas in fact we've already seen that mind maps make extensive and great use of logic, words, lines, order and numbers. Of course, in addition, they're able to use space, images, colour and produce a global overview which the brain works well with. So mind maps are very much a whole brain process, neither left nor right alone. Now I'd like to do a couple of exercises with you. First one is a flow of associations. Now we have on the screen here a chain of associations starting with the word water. We're freely associating from water to sea, sea to swim, swim to fish, fish to colours, and so on, ending up with the word sun. I'd like you to have a go at this, please. I'd like you firstly to draw a series of chains on a page of paper. It can be simple lines that you're going to write along. So 7 or 8 links that can take you from the word I'm going to give you in a moment to wherever you end up. I'd like you to do this as quickly as possible, please. It should take you about 20 or 30 seconds. And the word I'd like you to start with is learn. Learn. So freely associate your way along to the end of that chain as quickly as you can, please. Ten seconds. Okay, now wherever you've got to is fine. That's a useful start and end point you should have going from the word learn. Now, we've actually done this exercise with thousands, quite possibly tens of thousands of people over the years. What we usually find is that in a room of maybe 20 or 30 people, there'll be some similarities at this first level. So a few people will have teach, a few will have books, teacher, reading, studying, and so on. So there'll be some similarities. But even in a group of 20 people, there'll be at least 12 to 15 unique words, even at that first level. Then as we associate further out, of course the uniqueness starts to expand and expand, so that by the time we get to the end of the line, you could have virtually anything. And of course the associations you make at each point are going to depend on all the things that have happened to you, that you've seen, experienced, believed throughout your life. So it's not surprising that those associations are unique. So if you've gone from learn to school, you hated school, your next association is likely to be different from someone who loved school or excelled at school. The key point about this exercise is simply this, that the primary way in which the brain organizes information is through association. And for every person on the planet, those associations are unique. So one of the things we're going to do with the mind map is to make those associations as clear and as explicit as we possibly can. So moving on to the next exercise, again to do with association. I'm going to give you a piece of data in a moment. Again, what I'd like you to do is to write down as many associations as you can with that piece of data. So each with the central piece of data that I give you rather than in a chain as we just did. So just write down as many associations as you can, please, as quickly as they come into your head. Again, I'm going to give you about 20 to 30 seconds to do this. And the piece of data to start with is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela. Let's write down as many associations as you can with Nelson Mandela. So 10 more seconds. Okay, you should have a few associations written down. And again, we've done this exercise with thousands of people right around the world over many years. And what people report initially is that they make these sorts of associations. Smiling face, perhaps South Africa, statue perhaps they've seen somewhere, Mandela's loud shirts, safari perhaps when they've been to Africa, or more specifically South Africa. Have some feelings about the apartheid regime. Some have visited Robben Island, see prison bars, and so on. However, when we start to ask people what it was they got in their brains, we get something different. What we find is that people don't actually get the words themselves appearing in their brains very often. At least certainly not written down on a piece of paper. What they tend to get is a series of images. And those will be incredibly subjective. They'll be very varied. Almost always they're colourful. But overall what we tend to find is about 70 to 80% of people get colourful images, some black and white images, a few words. Some people hear snippets of sound, either crowds cheering for Mandela, one of the songs that was brought out before his release, indeed after his release. So what we get is a whole range of different associations in different formats. Now clearly, if I want to transmit information from one place to another, the best way to do that is through either the written or the spoken word. But if what I want to do is to think as effectively as I possibly can, then the more I'm able to use the full range of my cortical skills, the more effective that thinking will be. So the more I'm able to use association, imagery, colour, as well as words and sound, the better.